This is another edition of Cavanaugh's Corner, the labor talk show in southern Maine on public access television. This evening we'll have an opportunity to listen to an address by Charlie Kernaghan. Charlie is the executive director of the National Labor Committee, best known to most viewers as the person who made Kathie Lee Gifford famous for her Honduran sweatshop labor. Charlie is still out spreading the word, particularly here at the holiday season, that consumers need to be aware of where and the conditions under which their holiday gifts and products, and particularly their clothing, is being made. The expose of sweatshops didn't begin, nor did it end with the expose of Kathie Lee Gifford's sweatshops in Honduras. In fact, Charlie Kernaghan and the National Labor Committee have turned their attention to the nation's largest retailer, Walmart Corporation, and are exposing and promoting, frankly, what they call the people's right to know. And as you'll hear Charlie address in this speech that's being given at St. Michael's College in Winooski, Vermont, here in the fall of 1998, the National Labor Committee believes strongly that consumers, particularly here at the holiday season, ought to have the right to know where and how the products they are purchasing were made. And the focus of this campaign currently is on Walmart. Walmart is, their annual sales are larger, their own economy is larger than that of something like 150 countries in the world. So Walmart is a customer of products that has a great deal of clout, a great deal of leverage as far as their ability, if they care to exercise it, to improve living standards for workers. So please join me as we have a chance to listen to a presentation by Charlie Kernaghan of the National Labor Committee.
Here at St. Michael's College tonight to discuss the issue of sweatshop labor and the global economy. Charles Kernaghan has been active in labor rights since 1985 and is currently the executive director of the National Labor Committee, an independent, non-profit human rights organization focused on the issues of worker and human rights. He received his BA from Loyola University and his MA from the New School for Social Research. While Mr. Kernaghan is best known for exposing Kathie Lee Gifford's use of Honduran sweatshops, his work extends far beyond this high-profile incident. Kernaghan has led a number of fact-finding missions to the Caribbean and Central America that succeeded in exposing many labor ills that have since been improved. The National Labor Committee's work has been featured on 60 Minutes, Nightline, and in over 100 newspapers across the country. Together with over 200 churches, unions, human rights, and students groups, the National Labor Committee organized a holiday season of conscience to end child labor in sweatshops. Mr. Kernaghan and the National Labor Committee recently launched a People's Right to Know campaign designed to pressure companies to reveal who makes their products, where their factories are located, and what wages are to be paid to their workers. As a result of Mr. Kernaghan's crusades, no longer may U.S. tax dollars be used to build sweatshops offshore or fund projects where workers' rights are violated. As the world prepares to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, St. Michael's College is honored to welcome a man who has dedicated his life to the fight to protect the individual dignity and personal autonomy of all workers, Mr. Charles Kernaghan.
It was a very nice statement by Congressman Sanders. I have more respect for Congressman Sanders than any politician I've ever met. And I think the people in Vermont are extremely lucky. I wish we had them in New York. It's been a nice day for me to be here at this college. I've had a chance to talk with some of the students and with some of the faculty. And you definitely get the impression, a very real impression, that it's not just academic excellence that the university is committed to, but there is a genuine commitment to social justice. And that in this school are the best and the brightest in both senses, academically, but also in the sense of an awareness and a commitment to social justice. So it's been a tremendous experience. It's an excellent place. I like talking to students more than any other group of people. So it's, again, exciting for me to be here. And I'm going to tell you a little anecdote as to why. And I want to thank the students here who are doing human rights work and work to end child labor and to end sweatshop abuses. You're having an enormous impact. Today, on 40 universities across the United States, there are sweat-free student movements to make those campuses sweatshop-free, so that any garment or any product which carries the university logo will be made under humane conditions, where the human rights and worker rights of the workers are respected and the workers are paid a fair wage. This is spreading all across the country. You're having an enormous impact, whether you know it or not. And one of the reasons why you have such power, the way the system operates with the companies, when a company is approached by a union, and the union says, this company's violating human rights, this company's paying below subsistence wages, the companies have a very sophisticated public relations operation. And they taught the media, and by and large the media accepts this, they say, the companies say, well, look here, this union, they're paid, that's their job, they're paid to attack us. If they weren't attacking us, they get fired. They're a special interest group, they're after the dues money. What do you expect they're going to do? Of course they're going to attack us. And they say to the media, well, you know, the companies say to the media, the unions are very interesting in terms of an antagonist in a story, but they have no credibility. You can't believe a thing they say. And, you know, you can interview them as antagonists in a struggle, but they're not experts. And again, you can't really take credibly what they say. That's worked fairly effectively. However, when students become involved in the movement to end child labor and to end sweatshop abuses, the whole public relations operations of the companies grind to a halt, because they can't point to you and say you're a special interest group. The whole thing breaks down. You have this enormous power against the companies. I'll tell you right now, we meet with companies frequently. They're terrified of students asking serious questions about where these garments are made, under what conditions, at what wages. And they're terrified that this is moving very rapidly, and in fact even getting out of control. Whether you know it or not, you're having an enormous impact. And I would say one of the most significant developments in the struggle to defend human rights has been the involvement of students. And on top of that, it's been the involvement of people in religious communities across the United States. This combination of religious people in congregations across the country and students is enormously powerful. And it really will change how these companies operate. Talk a little bit about the global economy and use a good example, the Walmart company. You know, I don't know, I imagine lots of you have gone into Walmart. It's a stunning place. They wrap themselves in flags. They've been doing it for years in Walmart. You walk in and you see this big cardboard banner, big stars and stripes, flags are hanging everywhere. Bring it home to the USA, it says. Made right here. It says, support American manufacturers that support American jobs. We have an unprecedented commitment to purchase American-made goods. I found this really pretty fascinating. Not that we're a Buy American group, but it would be like Walmart, the largest retailer in the world. Walmart is so powerful. It would be as if Walmart was saying, there are standards, human rights, labor rights, and wage standards below which we're not going to go. We're not going to enter this race to the bottom and chase starvation wages all over the world. So he called Walmart. How much of your apparel, your clothing, your shoes, your handbags are made in the United States? Walmart said they didn't know, which of course is ridiculous. Of course they know. They monitor everything. But Walmart didn't know, had no idea. Sorry, can't help you, we have no idea. So we did something that was rather mind-numbing, but it turned out to be useful. We went to 12 states, and we went into 14 Walmart stores. In fact, we were in Vermont here as well. And we counted clothing and sneakers and all. And we found out that all of these retailers have hidden cameras and detectives and all that. So if you were to take out a notebook at Walmart, they'd pounce on you immediately. If you took out a camera, forget it, they're on you and you're throwing you out the store. They keep close surveillance. However, they allow a leeway for somewhat exotic behavior. So I found out that they wouldn't touch us if we used voice-activated tape recorders in our pockets. And so we went throughout Walmart. I spent well over 100 hours in Walmart counting garments. I just spoke aloud to myself the entire time. And it's kind of, I mean, obviously, here I am on a Sunday morning in Walmart. I mean, after spending hundreds of hours in these stores, I mean, you're just literally counting garments. And here I am in a women's department counting Kathy Lee blouses on Sunday morning, and I'm just like singing to myself almost. Oh, 39 Kathy Lee blouses, Bangladesh, $16. So here's some dresses from Indonesia. And frankly, we got away with it. It was a couple of times it was strange, like there was a mother there with her 2 children, and one of the kids started wandering over towards me, and the mother said, "Get away from that man, get back." And you felt kind of sad, to get treated like that. But at any rate, we ended up counting 105,000 items. 105,000, 86,500 pieces of clothing. Do you know, only 17% were made in the United States and 83% were made offshore. We counted 16,245 pairs of shoes. Do you know, only 16 shoes were made in the United States. Not 16%, 16 pairs of shoes. All the rest were made in China. We counted 1,910 handbags and pocketbooks. 0 were made in the United States. All of them were made in China. The famous Kathy Lee Gifford clothing line, 11% was made in the United States and 89% offshore. The McKids Children's label that they do at McDonald's, 4% made in the United States, 96% made offshore. Fate of Glory men's clothing, 13% the United States, 87% offshore. Walmart is lying through its teeth to the American people. Walmart has taken far more production offshore than the average for the industry. Domestically, the average for the industry is 40 to 45% of the clothing is made in the United States. With Walmart, it's just 17%. They're lying to the American people. We got a little interested, and I went back and I looked at the fine print. Walmart had an unprecedented commitment to purchase American. Then you get to the small print. Whenever they can meet the pricing available offshore. So Walmart had a little loophole. Well, how does an American worker compete with 9-cent wages in Indonesia or 50-cent wages in Mexico? Walmart, like I said before, is rather gigantic. Walmart's annual sales of $118 billion make Walmart larger than the gross domestic product, whole economic output of 155 countries in the world, and there are only 192. So here's this American retailer that is more powerful than 155 countries in the world. Walmart, we found out through counting the clothing, Walmart has production in 48 countries around the world, just for the apparel. If you counted the other goods, it's over 100. 48 countries in the world producing its private label apparel in tens of thousands of factories. In China alone, Walmart has 700 to 1,000 factories. Every Kathy Lee shoe is made in China. Every Kathy Lee belt is made in China. Every Kathy Lee handbag is made in China. Sunglasses, you name it. 700 to 1,000 factories in China. What Walmart does with that power is it pits these countries against each other. Who's going to give Walmart the best deal? It pits the factories against each other. Who's going to give Walmart the lowest production costs? No regulations, no tariffs, no occupational health and safety, no unions, no regulations. Just the poverty wages that they pay. In fact, as a graphic example, Walmart produces clothing in Nicaragua. Do you know what the government budget for the entire country of Nicaragua is? It's $585 billion. That makes Walmart's annual sales of $118 billion, makes Walmart 203 times larger than Nicaragua, and yet Walmart pays no taxes when it produces in Nicaragua. It takes its clothing, the clothing is made in free trade zones. In those free trade zones, Walmart does not pay any corporate taxes, no income tax, no sales tax, nothing, not even tariffs when the product enters and leaves the country. It's as if tiny Nicaragua, which is struggling under a $5.3 billion debt, is subsidizing the Walmart. And what Walmart leaves behind are 23-cent wages and the little rent they pay. This is the system. Ultimately, what happens here is Walmart is pitting the American people, the American workers, against desperately poor people in the developing world in what we call the race to the bottom, over who will accept the lowest wages, the least benefits, the most miserable living and working conditions just to get a job, just to be lucky enough to get a job. And Walmart is pitting the American people against desperately poor people in the developing world in the race to the bottom. A good example would be the Kathy Lee clothing. These blouses we found all across the country. Kathy Lee blouses. $16.96. Exactly the same with the one small difference. This one was made in the United States. This one was made in Mexico. The workers in the United States got paid $8.42 an hour to make this blouse. There's $1.70 of labor in this blouse, cost of labor. The workers in Mexico got paid 50 cents an hour. There is 17 cents of labor in this blouse. You don't have to be a, and they both sell for the exact same price, $16.96. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to realize where these jobs are going. They're going here, where they can pay the workers 17 cents to make the blouse. This is the race to the bottom. In fact, it was very disturbing. We've been following Kathy Lee production, obviously. We've seen a distinct shift of Walmart taking Kathy Lee's name and her clothing as they run after misery. The two big producers for Kathy Lee are Mexico and Indonesia. What's common with those two countries is the currencies have collapsed, so that real wages have gone through the floor. The peso's collapsed, like I said, 50 cents an hour now. The rupee in Indonesia is just about demolished. Wages have sunk as low as 9 or 10 cents an hour. That's where you'll find Kathy Lee. That's where you'll find Walmart chasing misery, chasing low wages. This dress, made in Indonesia, Kathy Lee dress, 9 or 10 cents an hour to make this dress. $24.96. There'd be pennies of labor in this dress. When I go around on these trips, and sometimes I gotta fly or go out internationally, I'm always worried they're gonna open my suitcase and go through my belongings. You find out that I have all different size women's clothing. So, what kind of a company is Walmart? I don't know how many people remember, or if they had a chance to see, there was a special that Dateline did in 1992. They went to Bangladesh and they found Walmart clothing being made by children, 9 to 12-year-old children, making Walmart private label shirts. The kids were paid 5 to 8 cents an hour, and they frequently worked past midnight. And if they didn't work fast enough, they were beaten. Dateline took the tapes back and showed it to CEO David Glass of Walmart. You know what he said? Those pictures don't mean anything to me, he said. He said, you and I may define children differently. So Dateline went back to Bangladesh and interviewed the owner of the company, who had been working under contract with Walmart for a year. And you know what the owner said? He said, you got it all wrong. You only think they're children. They're really malnourished adults. Case closed. This is Walmart. This is the real face of Walmart. People might remember the Kathy Lee Gifford episode that was mentioned earlier. She broke down on television, shedding crocodile tears, and she was going to sue me. And she said, you know, Mister, sit by your telephone. You might say I can't act, I can't sing. You might say, you know, I don't know what else she said, I can't act, I can't sing. There was a couple other things she said, but don't say that I don't love children. And Mister, sit by your telephone, you're going to hear from my attorney. And I don't have time to go into the whole story, but frankly, I was quite shaken and nervous because Kathy Lee is obviously quite powerful and Walmart is very powerful. And who wants these people suing you? And I thought to myself, what the hell, you know, what did I do now? But anyway, I want to tell you a little bit about the story of how it happened. We were in Honduras on an investigation. And these young workers came to us and they said, we would like to meet with you. They knew about human rights work we do. And in these countries, it's not as if you waltz up to the front of the factory and the workers come out and you stand around and you talk to them and you take out your notebook and you start writing stuff down. There are goons. There's the police. Workers will be fired or worse. So every decent meeting is set up in a safe location, clandestine location. So in this case, we're in Honduras. We're in the Choloma area of Honduras. So we said to the workers, go on down the road. This is how the investigations are done. We said, go on down the road about 100 yards. There's a food stand. And the owner is a supporter of human rights. He lets us meet out back. And there's a big fence. Behind that fence, no one can see us. We're safe. So sure enough, the women come down to the meeting. And we're just about to start, and then 3 young guys walk in. And the young women go up and they point to the guys and they say, those guys are spies sent by the company. Every single thing we say is going right back to the company. We're all going to get fired. Obviously, we couldn't meet. I was standing next to an old table. And the workers were leaving. And as they were leaving, they started putting their hands underneath the table. And I realized they're trying to give us something. And I stuck my hand under the table, and what they were doing is they were putting their pay stubs in my hand and the labels that they made in my hand, so that even though we couldn't speak, we would know who they were. We would know what wages they were paid, and we would know what companies they were working for. And when they all left and the spies were gone and I took my hand out and I looked at the label that he had given me was Kathy Lee Gifford. In my hand was this hand tag with Kathy Lee's face on it. These were the pants they made at the factory. Many times you run into these parents who carry around pictures of their children. I'm worse. I carry around pictures of Kathy Lee Gifford everywhere I go. This is the hang tag, a blow-up. And so here you see Kathy Lee. Got a lot of teeth. She's smiling. She's very happy. At the bottom of it says, a portion of the proceeds from the sale of this garment will be donated to various children's charities. Get you right there. It's good. It's a wonderful thing she's doing. But what they left out, what they failed to tell you, is that these were the people who made the garments, children. So they want us to believe that if we buy this garment, this Kathy Lee garment, we're going to be helping children in the United States, but you cannot help children in the United States by exploiting children in Honduras. 13, 14, and 15-year-old kids made those pants. And I want to tell you just a tiny bit about their conditions. These were the very pants they made. And you see, the pants are white. And so one of the first things that happens, the kids enter the factory at 8 o'clock in the morning and they come out at 8 or 9 o'clock at night. There are at least 130 children in that factory, 13, 14, 15 years old. When they come in, they're armed guards in the factory and the workers are searched. You know why? They take candy away from them. God forbid they should bring in a Tootsie Roll and get a stain on the fabric. Money lost for Walmart and for Kathy Lee. So they take candy away from the kids, and the young girls told us, well, when we're real hungry, we try to hide crackers on our shoulders as shoulder pads and sneak it in. The same story. The workers were not allowed to talk. Everything is by piece rate. So constant pressure, screaming at the workers to go faster, to go faster. For that reason, this production schedule, they wouldn't let them go to the bathroom. They had to raise their hand, these young women, to get permission to use the bathroom, and they only got it twice a day, once in the morning and once in the afternoon. That was it, solid rule. They, like I said, weren't supposed to talk to each other. These workers got paid 25 cents for every pair of pants they made. The pants sell in Walmart for $19.96. So the kids got paid 25 cents to make the pants. Their wages were 31 cents an hour. When the workers tried to meet, to learn their rights, and again, you're not talking about the steel workers or the auto workers union, talking little kids. They wanted to meet with the human rights group, CODE, the Committee for the Defense of Human Rights. When they met, they were all fired. 38 workers were fired. That's when we blew the whistle on Kathy Lee Gifford. An interesting thing happened. I have to leave out a lot because there's not so much time. But Kathy Lee made a lot of mistakes. Ms. Gifford made a lot of mistakes. And one of the big mistakes she made, people from Primetime Live came to me after the story had been going all across the country for like, a week or 2 weeks. Primetime Live is the same ABC that Kathy Lee is on. So they wanted to sort of help Kathy Lee. So they came to me and they said, how do we know that children work in this factory? So they said, Kathy Lee doesn't believe you. So I gave them a small version of the picture. They took it back to Kathy Lee. Primetime Live told me she looked at the picture and tossed it aside and said, these could be anybody's. They're nobody's. The mistake Kathy Lee Gifford made was at that very moment, this young girl was on a plane to the United States, Wendy Diaz. She was 13 years old when she started to work in the factory. She was 15 years old when we brought her to the United States. She worked in the factory sewing the Kathy Lee garments. This kid came to the United States, third grade education, never had publicly spoken, never had traveled before. She's younger than you are. She's had 1/10 of the education you have. When she got on the plane with the human rights group in Honduras to come to meet us with us in the United States, the human rights group called us and they said, she's on the plane. Of course, we're going to be there to meet her. And they said, oh, by the way, this kid doesn't talk. And I said, what do you mean she doesn't talk? She's going to be on ABC, CBS, interviewed by the New York Times. They tell me she doesn't talk for it. What's wrong with you? And they said, I don't know, we couldn't get her to talk. Anyway, she's on the plane coming to the United States. When she got here, it turned out that no one had ever treated her seriously before. No one had ever asked her a question before. No one had ever treated her as an adult before. When she came to the United States, she had, and we've seen this stuff, with these young workers, we've seen such integrity and such brilliance when they're young like that, that gets crushed as they continue to work in these free trade zones. Almost no one lasts more than 6 or 7 years because you're burnt up and you're exhausted. So this kid comes to the United States. It took her about 2 weeks to kick the butt in of Walmart and Kathy Lee Gifford, to the point where, I mean, she was in congressional hearings, she was on television, she was in the newspapers, she was unstoppable. I began to feel sorry for Kathy Lee Gifford or for Walmart. Maybe we should take this young person and stop her from doing this. And what happened is they asked for a meeting then. Kathy Lee Gifford asked for a meeting. And I found out about it. I was in a cab in New York, and the news station wins, goes beep, 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 they give you the news. So on the news came, well, Kathy Lee Gifford is going to meet with Wendy Diaz in the National Labor Committee, so we knew we were going to meet. So I got a call from their PR people, and they want to know where we want to meet. And I said I wanted to meet in a church, and they screamed back, "A church? What do you want to meet in a church for?" They wanted us to meet in the University Club on 5th Avenue. We never meet in our offices, by the way. We have this name, the National Labor Committee. Sounds big, but we're 4 people. So we don't let anybody into our offices. We don't want the companies to see our size or anything like that. So we always meet in churches. And we meet with churches that are active and we work with. So, I mean, it's funny. I thought Walmart fly to New York and we meet in a church, and Walmart doesn't know it's meeting with a 4-person organization. But at any rate, we say we'll meet in a church. And I had in mind an activist church in Greenwich Village that we work with. There's a group called People of Faith Network. If anybody's interested in progressive religious activism, these are the people who talk to. But anyway, I didn't know that Kathy Lee Gifford was friends with Cardinal O'Connor, so we met in a church, but we met in St. Patrick's Cathedral, not the tiny activist church I thought we were going to meet in. And we met in the private residency of the Cardinal, and I'll just tell you, we were petrified. I mean, I don't know if people hang out with celebrities or anything like that. I mean, I was terrified. Wendy was terrified. Barbara Briggs, my office, was terrified. We're all scared. So we decided to hide across the street to watch Kathy Lee go in first, to see who she went in with. And so we're hiding across the street. It's on Madison Avenue, we're hiding across the street. And sure enough, Kathy Lee comes. And she came just like we thought she would, with a whole entourage. Press people, public relations, company people, lawyers. It was scary. I mean, all these guys with pinstripe suits and white hair combed straight back and everything. And it was pretty intimidating. So we go in. And they put me in a rocking chair right next to Kathy Lee. And the Cardinal looked pretty good. It was a nice room. And the rocking chair was so big, I started rocking and my feet barely touched the ground. It took me a while to get adjusted. But then I looked at Wendy and I'm looking around the room and everybody's staring at Kathy Lee Gifford. And I have to admit, I couldn't take my eyes off her either. First time I was so close to a celebrity. And she was right next to me and we were looking, everybody's staring at her. And afterwards I asked little Wendy, and I said, what were you staring for? And so we started talking. What it was is Kathy Lee Gifford had just come from a television program. And she had so much makeup on, she looked like she was embalmed. It was scary. I mean, she was moving and talking and everything, but there was no expression, there was no lines or anything. And none of us, all of us who weren't used to it, we were like, we couldn't take our eyes off her. Well, eventually the meeting starts. And Kathy Lee Gifford made another mistake, but I think an enormously beautiful one. She leans over to little Wendy. She's sitting on the couch across from Kathy Lee. And Kathy Lee says to her, "Wendy, tell me about your life." And I think that Kathy Lee Gifford wanted a sob story from a little 50-year-old from Honduras, how poor it is in Honduras. Beautiful, the United States is. How lovely, Kathy Lee, you are. Well, little Wendy looks at Kathy Lee Gifford. And without batting an eyelash, in rapid succession, she tells Kathy Lee Gifford what it's like to live in one room with 11 people. She tells Kathy Lee Gifford what it's like to earn 31 cents an hour and not have enough money to eat properly and go hungry. She tells Kathy Lee Gifford what you feel like when they throw the garment in your face and call you a chicken head, how humiliated you feel. She tells Kathy Lee Gifford what it's like when your body aches and hurts because you need to go to the bathroom but you're not allowed and they won't let you, and how you have to learn to bear it. She told Kathy Lee Gifford what it's like to come out of work at 9 o'clock at night in the pitch darkness in a poor neighborhood without public transportation when you're afraid you're going to get raped or mugged. And you run home together with the other little kids whistling and singing to build up your courage. By the time she finished, Kathy Lee Gifford leaned over to little Wendy. And you imagine this powerful television personality leaning over to little Wendy and saying, I beg your forgiveness. I beg you to believe me, I didn't know. And now that I know, I won't let this stuff happen anymore. I'm going to work with these people. I'm going to work with you. I'm going to clean up the situation. That night, we signed an agreement with Kathy Lee Gifford that her factory should be opened for independent inspection by local, respected religious leaders and human rights leaders and women's rights leaders to guarantee that there was not child labor and guarantee that workers were given their rights, their legal rights, the rights that they deserved. And Kathy Lee Gifford signed an agreement that workers should be paid a living wage. I don't think she knew what was in the thing or why she was signing it. But of course, when she went to Walmart, she probably handed the document to Walmart. Walmart probably tore it up. So a little speculation, but nothing, very little has changed. So I can only imagine that Walmart took a look at it and said, a living wage? What are you, nuts? Open our factories to religious leaders? Tore the thing in shreds and threw it on the ground. So very little changed. You think that they would have learned out of that whole episode, and we do have to credit Kathy Lee Gifford with having educated the whole country. As she fought us, it really took the whole country with it. More people know about sweatshops and child labor today because of that than they have in the last 80 years in the United States, and Kathy Lee deserves credit. We never heard much from her. Just one other thing, I can't help but say it. Kathy Lee was not a Paul Newman. Very decent person. She did donate lots of money. But you know, she made $9 million a year off of selling her name to Walmart. $173,077 a week to give her name to Walmart. Her charity operated not like the Paul Newman charity, not 100% to the charity. Her charity was a little different. 90% to Kathy Lee and 10% to the kiddies. 1 to the kiddies, 9 to Kathy Lee. Once they knew, we never heard from their attorney again about the lawsuit. We were never called again. Well, we thought maybe they had learned a lesson. This year, in the letter that Congressman Sanders sent, he mentioned China. This is a Kathy Lee handbag. Carrying the same tag, if you buy this handbag, you are going to help the kiddies in the United States. A portion of the proceeds is going to go to help the kiddies. Well, this handbag was made in a factory called Linxing in China. The workers were forced to work 10 hours a day, 7 days a week. They got paid 12.5 cents an hour. For a 10-hour day, that's $1.25. For all 7 days, that's $8.75. However, the workers were housed in dormitories, so they subtract $5.41 as dorm expenses. At the end of a 7-day, 70-hour work week, they were left with $3.44. This is Kathy Lee in China. I said the workers were migrant workers, housed in dormitories. You'd have to see these dormitories for reproduction here. 10 to 20 people to a room in these dormitories and factories producing for the U.S. And the workers live in bunk beds, like military metal bunk beds, but not one person to a level, 2 people on the bottom and 2 on the top. The bunk beds are stuffed so closely together, the women put a little piece of cardboard up and cloth to get some sort of privacy. In these dormitories, working for the U.S. companies, the women are fed for breakfast a thin rice gruel, and for supper they get, and lunch they get stir-fried vegetables. But the companies are not inhuman, the American companies. When the women work past midnight, the next day they get a special treat. They get steamed bread along with the gruel. They get 2 things. I want to talk about China quickly. We took in, not us, the American companies took in 1 billion garments from China in the first 10 months of 1997 when we did the research. 1 billion garments. When you stop to think of it, it's mind-boggling. That's nearly 4 garments for every single man, woman, and child in the United States. There are people throughout the audience here wearing stuff made in China. 1 billion garments. Just think for a second. Do we know a single thing about how those garments were produced? Anything? Not a thing. China is gigantic. China is a 17-hour flight from New York. China is 13 time zones from New York. In China, the factories operate behind a veil of secrecy. There are no factory names listed. The factories are not listed in business directories. No visitors are allowed. In China, a worker who even discusses factory conditions can be fired, and anyone trying to investigate factory conditions is arrested and deported. Perfect situation for the American companies, because everything goes on behind this veil of secrecy. We did an investigation using university students, and we found out that the workers in China were 17 to 25-year-old women. At 25 years of age in China, you're fired immediately because you're exhausted. The work is so grueling. You're used up, you're too old, and you're wasted, you're gone. And you may get pregnant and they're not going to pay maternity benefits. So at 25, you're out of these factories that produce for the United States. The workers were earning maybe an average of 23 cents an hour without benefits, starvation wages. They were working 60 to 96 to 100 hours a week in China. The workers were, like I said, migrant workers from the countryside. They came into the factories with very little knowledge about their rights. They told our researchers that overtime started after midnight. Didn't realize that overtime started under China labor law after 8 hours. The workers go into the factories, and they're locked in the factories, and then they're locked into the dormitories. They're under surveillance 24 hours a day. There's nowhere for the workers to turn. In more progressive factories in China, they're let out 3 nights a week, maybe at 10:30. In other factories, they're locked in, and the only way they can speak to their friends outside is through a little opening in the metal gate. They can stick their face into it and speak to their friends. They work the 12, 15 hours a day. They're under surveillance in the factory. They go to the dormitory. They're under surveillance. They work 7 days a week. There's nowhere for these workers to turn. Put yourself in that place. In China, there are no independent unions. You form an independent union, and you're going off to the mental hospital. You're going to prison. There are no labor rights groups, independent labor rights groups. There are no human rights groups. There's no women groups. There's no independent religious groups. So these women are isolated with the U.S. companies behind these locked metal gates. And I have to say, very sadly, that the American companies are milking these workers for everything they're worth. They're milking that vulnerability. In fact, today, American companies in China are lowering standards, which seems unbelievable. How are the American companies lowering standards? They're taking work from the north of China, from the publicly owned factories, where wages were 50 or 60 cents an hour and there were some benefits. Not great places, but 50 or 60 cents an hour, benefits, no forced overtime. The American companies don't want to pay that, so they're moving the work to privately owned sweatshops along the coast of China. Privately owned sweatshops along the south of China, right above Hong Kong, where they can do whatever they want. Pay them 20 cents an hour, force them to work 96 hours a week, and have them fired if they even dare protest. This is what the American companies are doing, and it's not just Walmart. Ann Taylor blouse, jacket, $198, made in China. The workers who made this blouse are forced to work 7 days a week, from 7 o'clock in the morning until midnight. They got paid 14 cents an hour to make this $198 Ann Taylor jacket. Ralph Lauren, $98 Ralph Lauren blouse, made in China. The workers work from 7 o'clock in the morning until 10:30 at night. They get paid 23 cents an hour to make a $98 Ralph Lauren shirt. I think this is criminal, this one. An Ellen Tracy blouse, made in China. You know how much this thing cost? $155. And the workers were paid 23 cents an hour to make it. Ellen Tracy, $155. There's pennies of labor in this. Liz Claiborne again. $200 jacket made in China. Workers forced to work from 8 in the morning until 8 o'clock at night, 6 days a week for 23 cents an hour. This is what's going on in China. We hear a lot about President Clinton. Oh, they're mad at President Clinton. But the Republicans, at their 1996 Republican National Convention, they purchased 250,000 lapel pins for the Republican National Convention. And they all wore them, passed them out, 250,000 of them. And the owner of the company, they asked the owner of the company Avalon, which made the lapel pins based in New Jersey, they said, how do you do it so cheaply? And he made a big mistake, he told the truth. And he said, I'll tell you how I do it. I have a factory in China. I have 250 workers. This is a quote. I own them. They work from 7 o'clock in the morning until 11 o'clock at night. I pay them 9 cents an hour. They live 16 to a room, and they're mostly little girls from the countryside. That's a quote. This is the Republican National Convention lapel pins, but no one wants to talk about that. We buy toys from China. Now, this young woman here, she worked in a factory called the Sealy Toy Factory, which made toys for the United States and for Europe. You know, 80% of the toys and sporting goods we purchase in the United States are imports. 90% of the shoes we purchase are imports. 55 to 60% of the apparel we purchase is imports. We live in a global economy. This is the real face of the global economy. This young woman worked in this factory making toys for the United States. She worked from 7 o'clock in the morning until midnight, 7 days a week. She was putting in 84-hour work weeks. You know what her pay was? $5.55. 7 cents an hour to make toys for the U.S. companies. The company locked the girls in because they thought they may steal some of the toys. In November '93, a fire broke out. And since they were locked in, they couldn't get out. These kids are younger than you. They could not get out of the factory. 87 women were burned to death and 56 were seriously injured, burnt. This young girl lost part of her foot and her hand. She was so badly burnt with scar tissues under her arms that she can't lift her arms from the scar tissue. The burns were so bad her body doesn't perspire anymore, so she can't stand the heat. They kicked her out of the factory with like $9 a month pension. Go take care of yourself. And she lays in this village in total pain with sores and bleeding and things like that. That, unfortunately, is the face of the global economy. I want to show one other thing and begin maybe wrapping up, and hopefully there'll be some questions. If you wonder how the global economy operates, I'll use this example. If you look at these two pair of pants, they're Britannia jeans. They're exactly the same as the two pairs of jeans. They're $17.99. There's one small difference. This one was made in the United States, and this one was made in Nicaragua. In the United States, it takes 15 minutes to make a pair of jeans. In this pair of jeans, there's $2.08 of labor, about 11.5% of the cost of the garment. We've talked with the companies a lot, and we've asked them, what do you do when you go offshore? And they explained the whole thing to us. They said, look, in the United States, everything's done by piece rate. Maybe you get paid $8.31 an hour. This was in November '97. We did the study. $8.31 an hour. For that money, you must produce 100 pieces an hour. When we take the work offshore, we just translate the piece rate into the local currency. Now, what they mean by that is, in the United States, 100 pieces for $8.31 an hour. When they go to Nicaragua, you do the translation, 100 pieces into the local currency, 23 cents an hour. Same 100 pieces, but 23 cents an hour. But it's a real science of exploitation. Because the U.S. companies say, well, wait a second. These workers are obviously malnourished on 23 cents an hour, so take 5% off the piece rate. Also, it's over 100 degrees in these factories, and it's very difficult to work. People are sweating hot. Take 5% off the piece rate. The workers are working 7 days a week. They're exhausted. Take 5% off the piece rate. So the beautiful U.S. companies give the workers in Nicaragua 20 minutes to make a pair of dungarees. 33% more time to make the dungarees. There is 14 cents of labor in this dungaree. 14 cents, which is only 0.8% of the sales price. What the U.S. companies have done, they've taken the cost of labor and nearly wiped it out of a product. A garment made in the United States is traditionally 10% of the sales price of the garment is in labor. 10%. When they go offshore, it becomes 0.8%, even 0.3%. The markup in the United States from manufacturer to retail is 100%. When the U.S. companies go offshore, the markup becomes 500%, 1,000%. We still pay the same product for the garment, even though it's made with these starvation wages. The last example would be Disney. Disney production in Haiti, paying workers 28 cents an hour in Haiti. Workers, we went to the homes of workers. Should I go on too long? Am I going on too long? got to shut me up somehow. I thought that was the hook coming. Stay away. Anyway, this garment made in Haiti by Disney. The workers were being paid 28 cents an hour, and they were living in utter misery. We went to see them, and I had left some pamphlets outside. And they said to us, look, would you please come to our homes? We think you'd be surprised if you saw the way we live. And of course we said, yes, that's why we're here. We went to see the workers. They lived in little huts, maybe 8 foot by 10 foot. Stone walls, mud floor, and a scrap metal roof, which leaked like mad in the rainy season, one thin light bulb hanging down. And we're standing in the room, and I'm looking around, and I realize, man, there's nothing in this room. There was like one table and 4 chairs, and there were 2 little cots. There wasn't a fan, there wasn't a radio, there wasn't a television, there wasn't water, there wasn't food, there wasn't clothes, there wasn't toys. I say to the woman, where do you get your water? And she says, oh, we buy it down the block in buckets. They use those white compound buckets. We buy it down the block. It's 8 cents a bucket. We need 6 of them. 48 cents a day for water. When she came home from working for the Walt Disney Company making these products, she did not even have enough money for her family to buy water. I said to her, where's the bathroom? She says, oh, please come outside, and I'll show you. The bathroom is a hole in the ground that 10 families shared in that neighborhood, in that area. We went back into the house, and there was no food. I said, what are you going to eat tonight? She said, nothing. We frequently don't have money for food. Her children, she was a single mother, they were laying on the cots, and they didn't look good. And I said to her, how are the kids? And she said, well, they're home from school. Haiti, of all countries, was forced by the IMF to privatize its grammar schools. This woman, working for the multinationals, didn't have enough money to send her kid to school. So the kids are in school 2 weeks, and then they're out 3 weeks, and then they're in 2 weeks. One kid had dysentery, the other malaria. She didn't have any money for medicine. She worked for the Walt Disney Company, making 101 Dalmatian outfits. The workers in Haiti said to us, do you think the Walt Disney Company would pay us 58 cents an hour? They were the ones who taught us the expression. With 58 cents an hour, we could climb out of misery and into poverty. The workers were very realistic, and we felt like saying, come on, this is the Walt Disney Company. Come on, you can get a living wage here. And they said, no. Haiti's a very poor country, and we're going to go step at a time. With 58 cents an hour, we could put food on our tables for our families maybe 2 or 3 times a week. It doesn't sound like much to you, but for us it's life and death. And so we took the 58-cent request to the Walt Disney Company, and we were told to get lost, take a walk, stupid. You don't understand the global economy, you don't understand the free market, you don't understand that the free market allocates resources, and we can't pay 58 cents. Those are good wages in Haiti, 28 cents an hour. What are they complaining about? So we got a little angry, we went back to Haiti. And we found out in the 101 Dalmatian outfits, 2-piece outfits that were sold in Walmart for $19.99, that the women in Haiti were paid 6 cents to make the garment. This was the greatest crime exploitation we'd ever seen. 6 cents is only 0.3% of the sales price of the garment. So if Disney Company had paid the workers the miserable 58 cents an hour they're asking for, there would only be 9 cents of labor in the garment, and the Walt Disney Company would still control 99.1% of the sales price. So we're back always to the same issue of greed. You know, Michael Eisner, CEO at Disney, he doesn't mind paying himself $102,000 an hour. He didn't mind taking $535 million stock option in one day last year, the biggest in history. They do just fine. But the workers in Haiti are going to stay with the 28 cents an hour. And then to end with, not to go on too long, the way the system operates is the free market doesn't operate in the global sweatshop economy. There are no checks and balances. Workers go into these factories, they don't know their rights, they're young women. By and large, 80% of the workers are young women, just younger than you or your age. They go into the factories, they don't know their rights, they never heard of the US companies they work for, they don't know where the garments go, they don't know what the garments sell for, they've got no tools to defend themselves, they're taken into the global economy, no tools to defend themselves. On top of it, they're stripped of their rights. Like the kids in the Khaki Lee factory, if they even meet to learn their rights, they're fired. So where's the free market? Where's the checks and balances? It doesn't exist. All this production goes on behind closed doors. I'll just end by showing you some of the pictures, and that'll sum up why we're doing the campaign. This was a factory in Nicaragua, which produced clothing for Walmart. The workers would go in at 6 o'clock, 6:15, 6:45 in the morning, and leave at 7:15 at night. They were locked into the factories. They got 1/2 an hour break during the day, and they had to race to the exit, to the fence, which is locked. And they had to reach through the barbed wire to purchase a little bit of water or whatever food they could get on credit. They say there are young people working in these factories. These are pictures of kids that were working in Honduras. And afterwards, you're welcome to come up and look at the pictures. This is a recent trip we made to Honduras. These were workers that were working for Walmart, producing the kids' garments. They were 16, 15, 14-year-old kids. This is how a Walmart worker lives in Nicaragua. This is a house. It's a hut with a dirt floor. For the most powerful retailer in the world, Walmart, you know, is the 4th largest company in the United States by sales and the 11th largest worldwide. This is how the workers live that make the Walmart clothing in Nicaragua on the 23 cents an hour. This is how they go back and forth to work in crowded buses. These are workers coming out of the factories. I hope afterwards you'll come up and look at some of this stuff. And I'll just finish. This is remarkable to me. This was the workforce in Honduras. When we first started to investigate Honduras, 13% of the workers were kids. 13, 14, and 50 years old, thousands of them. They took them to work on used school buses from the United States. What do you do with a school bus that's dangerous and will explode because the gas tank is misplaced? Send it to the third world to get rid of it. So the buses with the English writing still on it in Honduras take the kids to the factories. And if you're out in front of the factories, you would think it was a grammar school or a junior or middle school. But they're not. They're going into U.S. companies to work for 10, 12, 15 hours a day. This last picture was a scene in Honduras where workers had been making Chutano shirts. And they told us that they worked from 7 o'clock in the morning until 9 and 10:30 at night, Monday through Friday. On Saturday, they said, we come in at 7 o'clock in the morning and we work straight through to 6 o'clock the next morning. In other words, they were working 23 hours. And frankly, I didn't believe them. Honduras is a hot place. It's impossible for these people to work to 10:30 Monday through Friday and then work 23-hour shift. We got there Sunday morning, and you can see from the pictures, they come out at 6 o'clock in the morning, you can see the bags under their eyes. The factory's here in the background. 6 o'clock in the morning, that trailer truck with the Chutano shirts on it pulled out, and we'll go to Puerto Cortes, about a 45-minute ride. It would be 48 hours later that those garments would be in Miami by ship. Easier than making it in Texas and sending it here to Vermont. We questioned the workers, and this taught us almost everything we needed to know. We said to them, how do you stay awake at night during producing like that? And they said, well, you know, the factory management, they clap their hands a lot, they scream at us, they yell at us, they blast loud music. They said up to a couple of months ago, they gave us a little cup with a white pill in it. And they had to stop doing it because many of the kids went into convulsions and dry heaves. They were giving them amphetamines or some very strong no-dos. In Central America, for the workers to work these hours, all of them, many of them, are forced to take stimulants to stay awake, no-dos mixed with vitamins. This was the case in Nicaragua when we were down there with hard copy. We asked them, did they know the U.S. companies they were working for? And they said they had no idea. Said, where is the clothing going to? They said, well, we think it's going to the United States, but we're not sure. So I started to rattle off some names. Did you ever hear Walmart? No. JCPenney? No. Sears? No. Gave them all the companies. Gap? No. I said Levi Strauss, and one of them stopped. Oh, we didn't make Levi Strauss in this factory, but before I worked in another factory called Suya Lim, and we made Dockers. And the kid questions me. She says, you know, they told us that Levi Strauss was a tiny mom and pop company, and it was going bankrupt, and that we would have to work longer hours and take a cut in pay to keep our jobs, and they all did it, not knowing that Levi Strauss is the most powerful and richest apparel company, privately owned company in the world. And we asked them, wait a second, we said the companies have codes of conduct. Human rights codes of conduct which would guarantee your rights all over the world. Any worker who works for a company, their rights are protected. And we said, do you know about the codes of conduct? And they looked at us and they said, you know, no, we don't know, we haven't decided what you're talking about. We explained this concept, no, but the companies say they're going to protect your rights. And they looked back at us and they said, oh yeah, we got a code of conduct. It's a screwdriver in the sun. And we asked them what they meant, and they said, well, they hit us on the head with a screwdriver if we're doing mistakes, or they put us out into the hot sun as a form of punishment. It's 100 degrees, and they'll put you for a full day in the loading dock, sweeping up where the trucks come in the hot sun. This was their code of conduct. And it taught us everything that we needed to know about how vulnerable these women are in these factories, where they don't know their rights, they're taken into the global economy, they never heard of the companies they work for. We asked them what wages were in the United States to see if they could compare wages. They said they wouldn't, they were nervous, but then they came back and they said, wages in the United States are 40 cents an hour. So these young girls brought into the global economy don't know what wages are in the rest of the world. They have no way to compare their wages. They never heard of the companies. They never heard of corporate profits. And they're stripped of their rights, and they're brought into the global economy. So I think, clearly, to end here and ask your support and all your leadership, we have a very simple campaign. The simplest of requests, and we're doing this request to Walmart. What we're asking Walmart for is just to give us the names and addresses of the factories they use around the world. What could be simpler than that? We're asking for nothing. All we want to know is the names and addresses of the factories. And Walmart refuses. Walmart says you can't have it because our factories are too good. And when we laugh at them, they say you can't have it because we don't want Kmart to have it or JCPenney to have it. Again, Walmart is lying through its teeth, because in any factory, all these labels are made right next to each other. Kmart is made next to JCPenney, is made next to Walmart. Walmart doesn't want to release the names and addresses of the factories, because once you do that, it's a way of knocking down those metal gates. It's a way of cutting down the barbed wire. It's a way of throwing out those goons and the armed guards. And it's a way of bringing these factories out into the light of day, where it's harder for the companies to exploit children or exploit young teenage workers or operate sweatshops and pay starvation wages. All we're asking for is transparency in a global economy. The American people have a right to know in which factories, under what human rights conditions, and at what wages the products we purchase are made. Today, as things stand, you cannot know whether or not the product you buy was made by a child or made by an exploited worker. So this is a very simple campaign. That's what the material is about, the letters to Walmart, the postcards. I can only tell you, don't get discouraged. Every time a company gets a letter from someone, they assume 500 other people feel the exact same way, but haven't taken the time to write the letter. Every time a company gets a phone call, they assume 250 other people feel the exact same way. This is the way they think. Letters from you in this audience tonight, for example, you sign letters to Walmart, you send postcards to Walmart. Believe me, it has an enormous impact. These women around the world who are working, and you know, there are 100,000 young women in Honduras producing apparel for the U.S., 60 to 65,000 in El Salvador, like I said, 750,000 in the whole Central American and Caribbean region, 900,000 in Mexico, 4 million apparel workers in China. These women working in these factories, making the clothing we wear, they don't have a voice in the United States. They operate behind these locked metal gates. You're their voice. You can be their voice. And it's a big responsibility, but you have really the power to do it. The companies are really terrified. And then just end on one other point, because I think it's important. We shouldn't get discouraged. This movement is really building. A member of the ILO came to my office, the ILO, the International Labour Organization in Geneva, Switzerland. And he said something that really struck me. He said, in the United States, the American people are doing more to question the companies for human rights, corporate accountability, living wages, than anywhere else in the world. That the American people are leading this struggle for human rights and worker rights and a living wage. And that's amazing. In a very short period of time, we actually have the whole world watching just how far we're going to go to demand accountability. And I'd say one of the major driving forces of that is you, as the students. And it's schools like this. And it's the opportunity we've had to discuss this. So I thank you all, and I thank the President. This was a really good experience for me to be here with you students. It seems to be a very great place.